Welcome to the CHGO Bulls Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app and be sure to use promo code CHGO when you sign up. My name is Will Gottlieb, and I am your host today for a very special episode of the CHGO Bulls Podcast. We're doing a crossover with my guys, Ricky and Jason of Cash Considerations. Guys, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Doing great. I'm good, Will. Thanks for having us, buddy.
I know. It's been, thank you. I think, Ricky, we had you on like at the draft last year. Jay, I don't even know if you've been on yet, but long overdue regardless. And I was listening to your last episode the other day, just kind of in preparation for this. And at the end, Ricky, you were just like, we keep talking to ourselves in circles about what the Bulls should do. Like, we just need some trade rumors. And guess what, guys? We got some. So today we got a lot of Zach LaVine buzz. And I figure we'll just get right into it. So this morning from Jake Fischer at Yahoo Sports, he posted an article about Bradley Beal and some of the trade buzz around him. And in that article was a little bit of a nugget having to do with the Bulls, where he says wishful executives will keep their eyes peeled on Portland and Damian Lillard, but it is the Chicago Bulls who have started contacting teams quietly gauging the trade interest in Zach LaVine. League sources told Yahoo Sports. It remains to be seen just how willing Chicago is to part ways with LaVine, or if it receives a commensurate offer for his services. LaVine has 4 seasons remaining on his 5-year, $215 million contract, and multiple teams have indicated that the Bulls are holding a steep valuation for LaVine, one that is likely to exceed what Washington can ultimately net for Beal. Let's just start here, guys. What were your thoughts when you first heard this?
Well, it's funny, Ricky, because we literally were talking about Zach LaVine trades on our last podcast. Will you bring that up? And Ricky was, because I feel like Ricky is now I just gathered it from our last pod. We mentioned it specifically. Like, it seems like you're starting to come around on let's just trade Zach thing. And again, lo and behold, here we go. We get some Zach LaVine slop. It is interesting the way that report was worded, that the Bulls are contacting teams. Because a lot of times, like now, whatever, teams call their teams, ask hey, what about this guy? The fact that apparently the Bulls are calling teams to see, it's kind of interesting. There were Zach rumors at the trade deadline, the Knicks came up. Who knows how far that went? It seemed like there were kind of competing reports with how serious that was. But we were definitely wondering then, and especially now with where the Bulls are at, would these talks pick up again? Now it does seem like the Bulls are initiating here and seeing at least what could you put on the table for Zach LaVine? And of course, with where the Bulls are at, nothing should be off the table. As we have gone in circles about, the Bulls should be willing to do just about anything other than running it back, because that's unacceptable. So they absolutely should be gauging Zach LaVine's trade interest. In terms of actually making a trade, I think it does make sense that they're asking for a lot, of course. I mean, he has been the face of your franchise. While he's not a 1A guy, as we have talked about, he is still a very good number 2 option. On a good team. I think he had a really good season. He's still 28, 29. And compared to Bradley Beal, who's all the hot name now, Bradley Beal has, some people say, the worst contract in the NBA. He's got the no trade clause. He hasn't really been that healthy. I've said recently that Bradley Beal feels like a total afterthought in the NBA. So if Bradley Beal, and it does seem who knows how much Bradley Beal will actually go for in a trade, but I would definitely think Zach should have more trade value than him. So I don't know if the Bulls will maybe wait to see what happens in a Beal trade and be all right, here's this trade, we want to get more, or if they're actually going to come out and just do it. And I mean, for me personally, like I said, I think I'd be fine if the Bulls did trade him. I would want a lot. I don't want to just trade him to trade him like the Bulls did with Jimmy Butler, as we all agree on the Jimmy trade that they didn't get enough for him. They basically traded him just to trade him because they wanted to be done with him. They should not. Obviously different front office, but that same mistake can't be made. Don't just trade Zach to trade Zach. They got to get good value for him. The question is, what value is that? And I'm sure we'll talk about possible trade packages there. But again, I think the most interesting part about that report is just the fact that it said the Bulls have contacted teams and that they are seeking out a possible trade. Again, nothing imminent. We'll see if they actually do it, but the slop is picking up, and love some good slop at this time of year.
Yeah, there's so much to get into with this. It's definitely a juicy rumor, and you got to thank Jake Fischer from Yahoo Sports for giving it to us on the day we're doing this podcast. But a couple things. One, I think Zach earned every penny of his contract last year. He was mostly durable. I believe after December 1st, he averaged 26 points a game on almost 64% true shooting, something like that. So I think we know what Zach is at this point, for better or for worse. 28 years old, turns 29 in March next season. He is an electric off-ball scorer with great three-point shooting and great rim attacking. He's also sort of a low feel player who just can't be, the lead decision maker on a team. We've seen that again and again during his time with the Bulls. I don't think Zach's the type of player that is going to lift an average team to greatness. I'm not sure if he's going to lift a bad team to averageness either. So I do like that the Bulls are at least poking around to see what they could get for LaVine. And it being coupled with these Bradley Beal rumors is pretty interesting, because listening to sort of the dialogue around Beal rumors, it seems like Washington is not going to get any value for him, which if they would have acted a few years ago, they probably could have gotten a big haul. So I do wonder with Zach at 28, with most of the league looking pretty wide open right now, if this might be the best possible time to capitalize on Zach's value. Now, as Jason said, I don't think that there should be a lot of pressure on the Bulls to dump LaVine. I think you only trade him if you're getting awesome package back for him, because he definitely is the best trade chip on the team. And, the Bulls are sort of looking at their future right now, like, all right, we're an average team, but where can we go from here? And they don't have a lot of avenues to improve the team because they don't have their draft pick this year. They probably won't have their draft pick in 2025 sent out for DeRozan. So potentially, if you're going to trade LaVine, I would be looking for a big haul of draft picks in return, which they did not get for Jimmy Butler. But if that deal is not on the table, I think Zach's going to continue to earn his contract with the Bulls as long as he's healthy. So it's an interesting move, an interesting rumor, I should say. I think it's definitely good that they're poking around to see what his value is. If someone knocks your socks off for a Zach LaVine trade offer, I would have no problem with the Bulls trading Zach. And I do think that it's very possible this will be his high point in trade value for the rest of his career, just given his age, given the fact that he closed the season on a pretty strong note and hopefully pushed aside some of the long-term injury concerns tied to his knee. So we'll see. We'll see what Arturas can do. He certainly has not made a bold move since the initial splash with DeRozan, Caruso, Lonzo. It would really be a shame if they dumped Zach in, just to get the contract off the books, because I do think he's worth the money. But you look at the rest of the team, and they're talking about re-signing Vooch to an extension. DeRozan is an expiring contract, so, it's kind of interesting. There haven't really been tangible DeRozan trade rumors. Are the Bulls looking at signing DeRozan to an extension? Right now, DeRozan making $27 million a year. He's the 47th highest paid player in the league. I think DeMar's earned a raise. I do not think the Bulls should be the one to give it to him. And I'm not sure what type of trade value DeMar has in return. It seems like the Bulls probably missed their window to maximize DeMar's trade return at last year's trade deadline or even in the offseason. So there's a lot of balls up in the air. I think it's good that they're listening to offers on LaVine. I'd also be fine with LaVine sticking around to finish out his contract with the Bulls too, because I think he'll be worth it. But, like Jason said, for the Bulls, all options should be on the table because they are currently an average team that is capped out with very few future assets, and that's not a great spot to be in.
And as you like to talk about, like if their aspirations are just to be the 8th seed and they're just getting older and becoming like a worse version of themselves, they have to like get better in order to achieve that goal. Like they didn't do that this year. What's to say they can even reach their goal of becoming an 8th seed next year if they keep on keeping on? So for me, I totally agree. I think like the fact that they are actively seeking out potential trade partners, just gauging the market, they absolutely need to do that. And it's good because like at the deadline last year, Arturas basically, showed his hand saying that like they looked around for deals, but none sort of presented themselves in a way that would have helped them get better. And to me, that indicates that like they weren't trying to go backwards. They weren't trying to sell parts. They were trying to accumulate. And I think, despite being kind of a disappointing trade deadline in the sense that they didn't do anything, I think it's for the best that they didn't invest more resources into this group and dig the hole even deeper. So I absolutely agree. And I think the other key piece here is that like, you're totally right, Ricky. It does need to be a value deal. And with the new CBA coming up, with the salary cap rising like 10% every year, it'll be super interesting to see what the valuation is on Zach, and sort of what the Bulls can get back. So I do just want to sort of take a look at this in contrast with Bradley Beal, who, a lot of, there's some comparison between the two. And obviously Fischer mentioned it, that Zach could exceed what Washington could get for Beal. So just throwing up the contracts here. Zach, obviously, as you said, Ricky, 2 years younger. He has actually played 52 more games than Beal over the last 3 seasons, and statistically been as good or better. He's been slightly more efficient with like an assist and 1 point per game less. But as you guys can see here, he's like making pretty significantly less money. He does not have the no trade clause that Bradley Beal has, which I think can impact obviously where he goes, but the return that a team can get. Like if he says, I only want to go to Miami and that's where you're going to have to send me, and Miami only has like Tyler Hero and the 18th pick to give up, that obviously hurts what Washington is able to get back. How do you guys see, one, like what Bradley Beal gets, and then two, how do you use that to sort of evaluate how Zach can be perceived around the market?
Yeah, Beal has very quietly had 2 kind of mediocre seasons in a row. And like Jason said, Washington's such an afterthought. Like you said, Will, he hasn't been super durable. I think that Beal only makes sense for a handful of teams, really. I think he could make sense for the Sixers if they lose Harden. I think he could make sense for the Bucks, maybe. Those are some teams that have been mentioned. Who else?
And Miami too, just seems pretty obvious.
Blanket on that. Yeah, so he could make sense for Miami. You do wonder how the new CBA just affects all these things, because as we've heard, the crunch is coming, but no one knows exactly what is coming because the CBA is not even done yet. It's not even out yet.
And the cap is going to rise. So we'll like see how much. So yeah, there's like so much just like weird stuff going on with this new CBA. Like details are trickling out, and like they do not seem good for the players at all. It seems like they got
like rolled. If you're a team and you're going to make a giant trade for a $50 million contract, like you want to know what you're getting yourself into cap wise. Yeah. So it's going to be super interesting.
But, just having cost certainty in Zach, I think could be potentially pretty appealing. Like, for example, when Jaylen Brown signs his big extension, he's going to be making significantly more than Zach. When, let's say, Trae Young signs his next extension, he'll be making a lot more than Zach. So you have Zach for his age 28, 29, 30, 31 season. And that's a pretty good time to have him locked in. And as I said at the start, I think he'll mostly be worth his money, because people need to wrap their head around this. Really good number 2 options are worth a max contract in the NBA. You can look at, the best number 2 options around the league. They're all making basically max money, and that's what Zach is making too. So the thing that I really think is interesting with Beal is just that, like, any trade the Wizards make with Beal is not going to net them a huge haul of picks the way it may have a few years ago. Now, we don't know what's going to be out there for Zach, but if the Bulls do trade Zach, I hope it is for the absolute most you can get for him, the biggest package of assets you can get for him, because Washington's not going to get that for Beal. I think Beal is going to be viewed in terms of an asset as like a slightly positive asset that, has some upside in terms of his on-court play, but also is really going to put you in a bind in terms of how you build the rest of the roster around that big salary cap number on your sheet. So, it's going to be interesting, but I think Beal's not going to fetch much in return, especially because he has leverage over the situation with the no trade clause. And if the Bulls do trade Zach, I just hope that it's for a boatload of appealing assets.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the Miami thing, like, again, Hero seems like the obvious whatever. Him, and then there's Duncan Robinson's salary, but then like draft picks. I'm not totally sure what Miami has draft pick wise, but I mean, they get maybe 2, like in a Beal offer, 1, 2 first picks along with Hero. Like I'm not really sure how Hero is evaluated there, but he's going to be on a pretty big contract now as well. He's fine as a player, probably still a little more upside there, but how much better is he going to be? I don't know. The Heat just made it to the finals without him, basically. Like I wonder like the Heat looking at this whole situation. I'm curious, like how much, if Beal says he wants to go to Miami, but then like if Zach's on the table too, like I'm curious how much more they would offer for Zach, because like Zach is, I mean, if you're the Heat, would you rather have Zach or Beal right now? Probably Zach, right? But I'm curious, like, how much
it's interesting because, yeah, like if you are Miami and Zach apparently has, more trade value, you'd have to give up more to get him. Is it worth
how much better
Beal for cheaper to get maybe similar production, but have an older, more expensive player? It is going to be interesting by contrast, because you're right. Like, there aren't a lot of obvious trade partners for either of these guys. And I think, the biggest thing that we've all kind of danced around here is the value piece. And like, specifically, how can you avoid falling into the Jimmy Butler trap of not getting enough back and not setting you, 3 or 4 or 5 years back in your development. So like you mentioned, Ricky, a couple of picks. Does it have to be 2 plus 3 picks? Is there a world where like some package of young players and maybe 1 pick? Because for me, as we kind of talk about it here with regards to the new CBA, and then John Hollinger a couple of weeks ago wrote a piece about how there just aren't very many teams that have their full trove of picks that they can give up. So like, what if that deal isn't out there? What if like a 3 pick plus a player package just like isn't available for Zach? To me, it's like, I feel less urgency to move on from Zach than I would for DeMar.
That's what I'm saying. Zach's going to be worth his contract. So I don't know. We could talk about hypothetical Zach packages, but the one that I thought could look interesting, both from a fit where Zach is going and what the Bulls could want in return. Could the Bulls get 6 and 11 from Orlando? Can you throw in a future first in that as well and give us some matching salary? I know Jonathan Isaac is a big salary number that isn't fully guaranteed. That would be the type of deal I would want if I'm the Bulls. When I look at teams that could want LaVine, I think Orlando's a natural fit. They desperately need shooting. They have a hole at the off guard. They need some athleticism too, because Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, not exactly blazing athletes themselves. So I think like Zach just checks a lot of boxes there, where he's a great shooter, plays a position in need, gives him some athletic punch. Now, would Orlando give up 2 lottery picks this year plus a future first for Zach? Can the Bulls get Jalen Suggs in that too? Like, I think that there's a lot of like sort of moving parts. It really just depends on how much Orlando wants to push to try to be potentially competitive team in the East next year. The East is top heavy. I do think there's some upward mobility. Orlando closed the season at 500 over the last few months. Banchero's a legit star, and Franz is a wonderful number 2 option. Those guys are on rookie contracts, so they're a franchise that could absorb someone like Zach. If I'm the Bulls, that's the type of trade I'm probably looking for. It's sort of debatable how much that really improves the Bulls' like long-term outlook. But like, if you're just talking 2 lottery picks, another first rounder, I think that that's probably like the max of the value you can get for Zach. So I'm just going to throw that out there. What's your guys' reaction when you hear that package? Do you think that that's not enough to trade Zach? Do you think Orlando would never do that? I think Orlando probably wouldn't do it. If you're asking me,
that's what I would lean towards as well. Yeah, I think the Bulls should consider something like that. I mean, 2 like decently high level shots at a lottery pick this year. And Ricky, I know you're the draft guy, and this seems to be a stronger draft to get 6. Pretty good to get 6 and 11 in. And then if you're able to get even more, like, I mean, because you look at whatever some of these picks, these big trades that we've had, whatever, a lot of picks involved, but like a lot of those picks end up not being like that great. So if you're getting a couple that are really high, and then if you are getting another young player who maybe hasn't been able to totally show his like total potential, I think that's at least something you'd have to consider. I mean, getting 2 lotto picks does seem like basically 2 top 10 picks seems like the best you can pretty much hope for. I would guess like if you could somehow get to up to 3, we've talked about the Blazers thing and like number 3 does not seem like that's realistic. We know the Blazers are talking to a lot of teams because Dame's basically putting the screws to them and saying, if you don't make a trade here, I might be out of here. But it does not seem like the Bulls are involved in that. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe they do get desperate enough that they would put number 3 on the table. And in that case, if like you have the opportunity to get Scoot Henderson, you probably go and do that. But assuming that's not the case, getting 6, getting 11, and maybe getting another asset or 2 is certainly not a bad haul. I wouldn't like hang up immediately. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I don't love it in the sense that it doesn't necessarily give you a premium upside, like blue chip prospect that you'd kind of want for Zach. I I definitely don't hate it, and it would be something that I would definitely consider, especially if you can get like Suggs or like one of the other young Magic players back. But it's crazy because this draft, I mean, you mentioned the Blazers, like the Hornets could make a move for 2. And I think like if you really are in on Scoot, and I think I certainly am, and would be a lot less interested in 3 if Scoot is not there.
Right.
That could be a trade partner. The Rockets are obviously like going after Harden. And if they miss on him, or even if they like want to put another really promising talent around him, like is 4 going to be available for Zach? 5, you got the Pistons. I think they're in a similar boat. So to me, it's like, who is the most desperate out of these bottom feeder teams to get out of the bottom? And like, how can you leverage that? Because like Ricky, you probably know better than either of us. Like, would you rather have for the next 4 years, Zach on his contract or Brandon Miller on his rookie deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the goal of the team, but I would probably rather have Zach. I think Brandon Miller is a good prospect, but Zach has proven to be a pretty electric threes and rim pressure guy. You know, as long as he stays healthy, I think LaVine's going to continue to be really good, but also like LaVine's not good enough to truly impact team success at a high level. Like, I don't think that should be breaking news because we've just seen it, you know, for years and years and years at this point. So I'm curious, Will, like just hypothetically, what do you think a good LaVine package would look like? So you're talking about trading him for a top 5 pick in this draft. I personally just don't think that's realistic, that you could get the 2nd or 3rd pick for Zach LaVine. Like, I don't see that happening. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Charlotte would go for that. I really just have no idea. But
that's a wild card.
No way Charlotte's going to do that. So like,
MJ is going to help the Bulls out.
Yeah.
What to you would be a good Zach package?
I think it's really interesting because, as Jay mentioned, like a lot of the picks in these like 3 unprotected future picks deals are probably not going to be that good. And so if you do have a truly high bite at the apple, like maybe that's worth a couple picks. I definitely think if you could get, you know, 6 and 11 and one more future pick, like that Denver pick in 2025 that they have, probably not going to be, you know, it'll be outside the lottery for sure. You know, assuming nothing terrible happens in Denver. Yeah. So like that probably sweetens it up for me. Yeah, it's tricky. Like I think the Knicks were kind of an obvious trade partner. There were the rumors there, but they don't have a pick in this upcoming draft. Obviously sent theirs to Portland in the Josh Hart deal. And then the Mavericks tanked into possession of their own pick, which was top 10 protected. So they don't have any picks this year. And I feel like if you're going to move off of Zach, you kind of got to get something back that helps you at least like from a young prospect standpoint immediately. Yeah, I don't know. As we just kind of sit here and think about it, like, yeah, maybe 6 is kind of the highest you can get. I do think the Rockets could be a trade partner. I've heard like Beal to Detroit, and it's like, if you're going to trade for Beal, like maybe you would rather just trade for Zach. And I don't know, like if Whitmore or Men Thompson are there, I feel probably better about taking those guys than I do Brandon Miller. So that's like the ideal range. But again, if you're not able to get that, I don't feel as much pressure to move off of Zach right now because 1, I think he's playing up to the value of his contract. But 2, I think as the money increases, as you have guys like Jaylen Brown making like $55 million a year, 40 does not look that bad. And I think he becomes even more tradable in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. When it comes to the Rockets, like would they, I think we talked about this last week. Like would they trade Jalen Green and 4? Like, is that too much? I have no idea. Like Jalen Green is like, whatever, maybe young Zach LaVine. Like if they're really trying to, if they are going for Harden, like Zach playing off Harden, at least offensively, would be pretty devastating. So like maybe would they do 4 and Green? That probably seems like too much, but like I'd at least be looking for something like that. I know they have other young players too. I don't know, but I think another interesting thing that, I mean, I'm sure we're about to talk about, but just like if the Bulls do look to trade Zach, then what else do they do? Like if their aspirations are they going to just try to compete like with DeRozan and Vooch and like whatever they get back? What would the next move be? I'm very curious about that because AK says they don't want to rebuild. But trading Zach obviously is like a huge step in some kind of direction, but like, would they then just try to like build a team around DeMar and Vooch for a couple of years and like whatever they get back from it does seem like I am very curious about what their mindset is. Like, do they just want to be off Zach? Do they just like not like Zach and they want to just move off him and kind of compete for a little bit? Would they actually blow it up? AK says he doesn't want to, but what do you guys think about that? Do you think like if they traded Zach, they would then also trade DeMar? Do you think they would try to just, because I think Armad at Bloggable kind of wrote about this. They're like, trading Zach doesn't necessarily mean you have to blow it up. So I'm very curious, like depending on the packages they'd be looking for, if they would be trying to get something that's more like win now and like try to keep this thing going, which I feel like we all probably think is pretty foolish. Like I feel like if you trade Zach, you might as well just completely tear it down. But I'm really curious if the Bulls front office feels that way.
Let's get into that. But first, I just need to take a quick break to tell our listeners about Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. They have stops all over the Chicago north side, south side, suburbs, Wrigleyville, River North, even Champaign and South Beloit. And they've got a ton of different products. Mindy's they have is called is one of the strains that they have, and it is a edible that was created by an award-winning chef, which is pretty cool, and a ton of other products that I'm sure you will all find interesting. So through August, you can head to sunnyside.shop and use code CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off your total order, one use per customer. That's not only for new customers. Anyone can use that code, pick up everything you need to elevate your summer. And of course, you must be 21 or older or have an Illinois medical card holder. And as soon as you're done smoking weed, you can drink some beers at Goose Island Beer Company, our favorite sponsors here at CHGO. Obviously, Goose Island is a staple in Chicago, and they have been Chicago's beer since 1988 with an incredible roster of beers, including the Goose IPA, the 6-time medal winner at the Great American Beer Fest. It's always in style and has a beautiful citrus aroma and bold hoppy finish. They've got the tropical beer hug, which is strong, 9.9% alcohol, but delicious. They've got their classic 312 wheat ale and the full pocket Pilsner, which they're saying is every brewer's favorite brew. So grab an ultra fresh brewery exclusive beer at the Goose Island Original Brew House on Clybourne in Lincoln Park, or from their tap room in Fulton Street in Westtown. Go grab yourself some Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer. That was a good segue, Jason. I think that was kind of where I wanted to go next, is just like, what are we doing here? So I think first, do we even trust AK to pull off a Zach trade right now? And if so, what direction does he go that actually makes sense? Because as you said, like they could try to retool around DeMar. They've had, a strong stance publicly that they're not going to do a full-on rebuild. But to me, and maybe you guys disagree, like keeping and retooling around around DeMar, and obviously they've got like these Vooch extension talks ongoing. Like, is it feasible to retool around the old guys? Does it need to be a full-on teardown if they're going to trade Zach? Does it make more sense to trade DeMar and retool around Zach? What do you guys think?
Well, I don't think it makes much sense to sign Vooch to an extension and sign DeRozan to, I assume it's going to be a lucrative extension. I don't know. I guess
the max extension is for 154. So it's like 38 and a half per year.
We keep talking about, okay, so that's going to be the max extension for DeRozan. But like, what's he actually going to get? Is he going to get, so he's making 27. Is he going to get 35 million a year? I think that could be okay if you do 2 years. I wouldn't want to do 4 years at that. I mean, he's turning 34 this year. So at a certain point, the age curve remains undefeated. I think that you got to be really cautious how much you're going to pay DeRozan as it gets up there. I would rather lose DeRozan for nothing, honestly, than give him anything close
154.
Yeah, like that's wild.
He's earned. I keep saying this. He has earned that money with how he's played. Like he's outplayed his contract. He's earned it. It's just like it doesn't make sense on this Bulls team to give him 154. That's crazy. Like it would be so silly.
And the Vooch thing, like we've been debating this forever. Just like, okay, if you lose him, how do you replace him? Well, if you're gonna keep Zach and you are committed to DeRozan, And I do agree with the point that, like, if the Bulls lose DeRozan, that's going to really have a big impact on the team's ability to remain competitive, just because he's such a steady hand at the end of games. Yes, he's a bit hard to build around, but, you know, he's a low turnover guy. He's an efficient 2-point scorer. He really just helps settle the team and organize them, even if he's not exactly like the ideal type of heliocentric star that you want. He does a pretty good imitation of that at a fraction of the cost, as the 47th highest paid player in the league. So if you're going to stick with Zach and DeMar, I think it would make more sense to move off Vooch. Try to find maybe more of a high upside center. I do think you need to find a center who can shoot a little bit and pass a little bit. And there's not a lot of those guys that fit that description. The Bulls maybe had one in Wendell Carter, but he's long gone at this point. So it doesn't make any sense to me to trade Zach, re-sign Vooch, and then, you know, keep DeMar into an expiring.
Like, where are you even going if you do that? Like,
right. Yeah. What are you doing? So,
like, unless you're turning Zach into somebody better than him, which you are almost certainly not, like, yeah, like if let's, I mean, the Miami thing, like if they somehow, whatever, they traded LaVine for like Tyler Hero and whatever else, like what do you what are you doing there? You're just going to be in the same spot. Like I think that's what Matt, again, on Bloggable, it is on his Substack, brought up, like that like our ownership could be like, well, you know, like Hero's like kind of like Zach, but he's cheaper. You maybe get another few assets so you can kind of remain similar. Maybe you fill out the roster a little better and you can kind of get into the same place. And again, some of it just comes back to the aspirations. Do they just want to kind of be okay, compete, maybe save some money, and like maybe they would do that. But I know we don't think they should do that. Like, which is why, like, if you trade Zach, I think you should probably just blow it all up. And like, it's just like where is your future going if you're trying to build around 33 and 34-year-old Zach or DeMar and Vooch? Like, that's, unless you're somehow able to like turn these guys into something really, really good, like. It just doesn't make much sense to me. Like, unless they're hoping that, okay, you stay competitive and then you turn like DeMar into something better in the future. But like, is that really going to work? Like, I can't, like if DeMar signs a big extension, like, is that contract going to be able to get something, I mean, better? Maybe, but like, again, the Bulls have no draft picks and like no young players either. It's like, maybe you get a few in a Zach trade and like, that's what their thinking is, but it's just hard to see like that turning out good at all.
When they like built this iteration of the team, I think one thought was like, okay, we're going to get back to competence and relevancy. And then next time a star is on the market, the star is going to choose the Bulls. Well, I mean, if that vision is ever going to come into focus, I think like Zach would be the guy that other stars want to play with.
Yeah, they're not going to want to play with like 36-year-old DeMar.
Right. That's
like Ricky, you said like it's hard to build around DeMar. I don't think it is. You just got to get shooters. Like if you just put shooters around that guy, he'd be really good. Like his isolation scoring is incredible. The fact that he can do what he has done despite zero space around him, like with just defenders draped all over him, he'd be really good with just shooters. And like I agree with Matt in that sense. Like if you do trade Zach, you could remain approximately where you are, which is like not that hard to do. They were the 10th seed. They were in 12th for most of the year. But I think, yeah, if you're going to trade Zach, and this is like the circular debate that I think we've all been having for weeks now, which is like, if you're actually going to try to improve long-term and you're going to trade Zach, like what are you doing with just DeMar? And so I think it's more to me about like, they could sort of remain competitive. I use air quotes there, but like, what does that even mean? Because as I mentioned before too, like DeMar's older. If he falls off a cliff, like your sustainable method of getting to the 8th seed every year isn't even like possible. So like, what is the justification for sticking around that? I could be fine. Like, I think they could remain in that 12 to 10 race and like, maybe that's good enough. But I think longer term, like that tells me everything I need to know about the long-term vision of the team, as if we didn't already know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then, Will, I'm going to ask you, how viable do you think it would be to bring back Vooch, Zach, and DeMar and tweak the role players? Let's say, you know, what I would like to see the Bulls do is just make some trades. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean trade Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
But too much positional overlap on this team. They got too many guys who are the same size and the similar skill set. Because that's the only type of player Arturas Karnisovas apparently values. So Derek Jones Jr., good player, like him. He's cool. He's probably got to go. Javonte Green, love him. Inspiring. Such a cool guy. Probably got to go. I mean, they just simply need more shooting. So how viable is that path of, okay, we're going to re-sign Vooch. We're going to keep Zach. We're going to go into this last year of the DeMar deal with an eye on extending him at some number. And we are going to tweak the role players around them. Are you disgusted by that plan, Will? Do you think that that is a solid plan? Do you think it's a great plan? How do you view that?
I think it's a great plan. I think so. No, I'm just kidding. But this is the discussion that I think the Bulls are probably having privately, is just like, we don't know how to get this thing better, but we know if we do anything, it's probably going to get worse. So let's just stay the same and not get worse. To me, it's like, how could you have not learned from what happened with Vooch this past year with regards to DeMar? Like, how can you go into another season with him now an expiring contract, with him now entering his age 34 season? Like, how can you justify, at the very least, like not extending him to a reasonable number to where you can trade him? Because ultimately, like, that's the direction you have to go, right? Like, this guy's great. He's playing super high level at an older age, but like, he's not gonna be able to play forever. And if you do want to have any sort of like long-term sustainable success, you're right that like the idea was to have him sort of carry the torch for a little while and then pass it to Zach. But obviously that hasn't worked the way that we wanted. So you have to pivot out of that. And I think trading DeMar is like the first step that I would do. I think that makes you a lot worse. And so maybe they sort of accidentally tank into a good draft pick next year. You still have the ability to then trade Zach down the line once you have a little bit more clarity about what your situation is. So to me, it's like, if you're not going to tear it down, if you are going to bring back Vooch, if you are going to not trade Zach, I think like DeMar has to be moved. And it sucks because like, and for Zach too, like I really like both of these guys. They're great players. They have like a ton of respect in the locker room. What DeMar has done for some of these younger players and just being a mentor and being sort of a secondary face of the franchise has been amazing. And like, Zach's really good. He's just been a good soldier through a horrible rebuild for 6 years. And he's never really been like the fan favorite that a sort of franchise player tends to be with their team. So it does kind of like suck that these guys are just like always in trade rumors, but that's the position the Bulls are in right now. Like, they need to make a move. And I think for me, it's like, it's pretty clearly DeMar. And then at that point, you're worse. So you should probably trade Zach. Whereas if it's Zach, then it's like, what are you doing? You have to trade DeMar now.
I am curious to see like if we get reports coming out soon, like about Zach, whatever, leaking from Zach's camp, because he's clutch, right? Like, yeah. Now, if we're getting now like rumors about the Bulls contacting teams, I wonder if we get any like Zach is upset about this, because I mean he's heard his name now in rumors for a few years now, like, and you know that gets old. We've seen some guys who just like keep being in trade rumors, they don't get traded. The guys like whatever, John Collins, like Miles Turner. I know Miles Turner, it seems like things are better now, but like after a while, like, and you're just not winning. And Zach is now like 28, 29. He's won one playoff game and one play-in game in his career. Like, at a point, just like get me the heck out of here. Like, so it will be interesting on that note. I mean, Ricky, in terms of like, if they do bring everyone back, the main core back, like, we talk about rotating whatever the role players out. Like, should they bring back Kobe? Well, are you a fan of re-signing Kobe White?
I feel like it's got to be value with all these guys. Like, you probably feel a little bit more like your hands are a little bit more tied with Kobe and Patrick, because like they are really your only young players with upside
plays.
But like, is Kobe at like the $18 million number that John Hollinger had the other week? Is that like worth having on your roster? Like, I don't know. At that point, maybe you should look to sign and trade him. St. Patrick, like 20 million, that's fine. I don't really have like a problem with that number, but like 25, 30, it starts to become like, what are we building here? And especially if you're going to give Vooch 20, 25, if you're going to give DeMar 30, 35, like, I just don't see an avenue to fix any of that or to even improve on where you are. Because as I've always said, like, the Magic are getting better. They were 500 through the heart of the season, and they've got 2 lottery picks, and they've got a ton of young players who are getting better. Pacers were over 500 with Halliburton, and they have the 7th pick. They've got Benedict Mathurin. Like, they've got guys. Like, these teams are coming for them, and there aren't that many teams that are going towards the bottom. So I think if you're looking at it from a value standpoint, that's really the key. And I think that's true for like almost everybody except for probably Vooch and DeMar, where I feel a little bit more urgency to just like get what you can for them, because I think otherwise it starts to look worse and worse every year.
The Kobe thing is just tough though, because we talk about, okay, if they're going to like bring these guys back, you like need volume shooting, and Kobe's like one of the only volume shooters. But then if you don't want to pay him, whatever, $20 million a year, you sign and trade him. Like, what are you signing and trading him for? I don't know. But like, that's just such like a weird spot because they have such the need there for what he brings, but like, he's also not that great at it. So it's like I was not a Kobe guy. He got better for sure as this season went on, finally started to round out his game, but he's still, and he gets up threes, which is great, but he still like isn't that good at it. So it's like, how much, like you said, how much do you really want to pay him? Like, do you really want to lock in these guys to this much? And if you're like if you're locking in all these top guys and you basically have like the same main rotation guys as the team that just went whatever they went, again, what are we doing here? It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's tough because their situation right now is pretty bad, but I do think they could make it worse, like if they make the wrong moves here. So, you know, while all of us hated the inactivity of the last few transactional periods, I could see like if they just like made some trades on their non-core pieces, signed Vooch to, you know, if I'm re-signing Vooch, I really want a year that's non-guaranteed there, because I think the expiring contract could be more valuable in this new CBA. So like, if you get, let's say, a 3-year deal, third year is mostly non-guaranteed, like potentially that could maybe raise Vooch's trade value down the line. Because I think, you know, teams are going to want to look for ways out of hitting that second apron. And then with the rest of the roster, like whether you re-sign Kobe, who seems like he'd be a good fit because he can shoot, but we've also seen Kobe for a few years now. Can you trade Kobe for someone better and more established than him? Like, I think they should be looking to make some trades. They haven't made any trades since getting DeMar and Lonzo. So it's time to make some trades. Like if they're going to re-sign Vooch, okay, make sure you get a non-guaranteed year at the end of it, because that would be one way to increase his trade value, I think.
My guess with Vooch is that they are probably looking at a 3-year deal right now and negotiating over who gets the option on the third year. That would be my guess. Which, yeah, I mean, if you're giving Vooch like a third-year player option, that's for his age, like 35. I mean,
they do love giving out player options.
But again, like I talk about like the desperation level, and this is where you get yourself in trouble. If you are determined to make the 8th seed every year and you're desperate to like retain your guys in order to do so, that's when you make bad contracts. And so I think in this new CBA, where draft picks are at a premium, where developing young talent to be cheap, like high-level contributors right away is so important. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of talking myself into the 6 and 11 thing here now, because like, even if you do have DeMar and Vooch in that core and Patrick, whatever, you get like a couple of young players that hopefully pop, but at least they can sort of be the bridge into the next thing. Whereas if it's just like Zach and the kids again, I feel like we've already kind of seen that story play out. I don't know. It's hard to imagine what a good return is for Zach, and just in general, what these sort of star returns are going to be this summer after just like 3 unprotected and a player for DeJounte Murray and Donovan Mitchell, 4 or 5 for Kevin Durant and Rudy Gobert, 2 players that should be in the same sentence. It's crazy. I don't really know what to expect. And then if they can't get that kind of value back, yes, I think we all want them to really make trades, but they do have to be careful about not completely screwing themselves up for longer term.
So I also want to bring up, want to bring up Patrick Williams. Talk about Kobe. Like, I think some of this also depends on like just how good you think Patrick Williams is. And I've been a skeptic because I know like one of the things we talk about with keeping this core together, a Raptors guy talked about like trading Lonzo and Patrick Williams for like Fred VanVleet in like a sign and trade, like to add to this core. Like, is that something you'd want to do? Like, how much do you guys believe in Patrick Williams? Rick, we've obviously talked about this a lot, but like, do you think Patrick Williams still has like any type of star upside, like equity there? Or do you think he's just going to be like a guy? We talk about like whatever the 5-year, like $100 million, $20 million a year thing that I think that was Keith Smith threw out there as like a possibility. Like, is that like something that would be good? Like Will, you said like that's fine. We talked about it in our podcast. We thought like that'd probably be fine. Like Pat's a fine young player. Again, skeptical about star upside there. So like if we do like Zach and the kids, I think that would be like we are banking on Patrick Williams like taking a huge leap and like being a guy moving forward, or you just tank and you hope that the next guy you get in the draft is good. So like, Will, where are you on Pat these days?
Because in that scenario, like you don't even have the upside to keep bringing in draft picks, right? Like you're not going to get as much for DeMar as you are for Zach. And that's kind of where I talk about the urgency. I think Patrick at 20 million is fine. Like OG Anunoby was making 19 million this year, and OG is much better than Patrick defensively and offensively. I mean, I think he averaged like 18 a game. Patrick can't even score 10. But I do like Patrick. I think he's sort of like the prototypical big wing 3-and-D guy. And he does have some creation upside that I just don't think he's really been confident enough to fully explore yet. So I think it's on the Bulls to like put him in a position to be able to do that. Billy Donovan and I kind of went back and forth over the course of the season talking about how like that was not going to happen because like it's not necessarily in the best interest of the team, because the best interest for them is to get the 8th seed now. But I wonder if at any point that they kind of not decide that, getting the 8th seed is not important. I think that will always be their goal, but that in order to get there, Patrick Williams has to level up. And in order for him to level up, he needs to do a little bit more. So I think if you can get Patrick at that number, it's probably fine value. And then whatever else he can develop into, I think he could turn that into a value contract. The new CBA is going to be wild. And it's hard to really imagine like who gets what number, but like 20 million on that CBA is probably like the $14 million contract Jordan Clarkson has. And for like a 6-man scoring type versus I think what's more valuable, like a big wing 3-and-D. So I'm totally fine with that. But obviously, it's not in a vacuum that you're looking at that. It's like, how do you factor that into the larger puzzle? And if Zach is there, DeMar is there, I'm not really sure
you do that,
how that works.
That Van Vliet thing?
The Van Vliet thing being...
There's Lonzo and Pat. This was, I think, Eric Careen at the Athletic.
Oh, yeah.
Lonzo and Pat and like a second rounder for Fred Van Vliet in a sign and trade.
Sorry, my desk is raising up and down. Probably not, just because I think that, again, locks you into this longer term version of like maybe a little bit better, probably better, but how much better and for how long?
Right.
I think Van Vliet is a really good player, but he's a little bit older. And he has a ton of miles on him.
Nick Nurse miles.
Yeah, and it's like the Tibbs miles. Like it's heavy. So yeah, I just think like the idea of investing more into this group, I think, is just a bad idea. And so they have to kind of be looking for ways out. And one of the ways to do that, I think, is just going to be, like you said, Ricky, trading some of the role guys. And obviously they don't have a draft pick this year, but Justin Lewis was an undrafted free agent that they signed. And I want to get your opinion on some of the potential, late sleeper guys that could fall out of the draft, or I don't know, just like free agents maybe in the G League that you've been interested in. But first, one more ad break. I want to tell you guys about ComEd. ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve, helping manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future. ComEd offers a wide variety of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes. ComEd also offers free facility assessments that can help find energy-saving opportunities like for HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes. And if you're wondering how it works, it's quite simple. An authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. These can be done in person or virtually, and they'll last approximately 2 hours. Then within 3 to 4 weeks, customers will receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects that they can start working on immediately. Each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, cost savings, project cost, potential incentives, and simple payback. So if you own a business, don't wait. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy-saving tips, lighting incentives, or to schedule your free facility assessment, go to ComEd.com/poweringbiz. Also would love to tell you guys about Shady Rays. Shady Rays are the coolest sunglasses that help you take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair of sunglasses you've worn. They're durable frames and extremely clear optics with polarized lenses for outdoor adventures. But that's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by the lost and broken replacements protection. So if you don't love your Shady Rays, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There is no risk when you shop there. You've got the free exchange and you've got the loss and protection program. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is offering their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try it for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. So if they're going to stay the course and maybe the Zach thing happens, it's like a week before the draft, and I'm a fan of the slop. We love the slop here, and I'm glad we got some slop before we talked. But I still think it's probably most likely that they don't do anything. I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree. So if it's just fringe roster moves, I agree, Ricky. Like they have to make some trades of these guys at the back end. I know you guys were on with Stefan the other week, and he was like 6 new shooters, and I'm fully on board with that. Like give me just like 6 guys, 5 guys that can come in and shoot threes at a high level and create some chaos with movement. So I don't know if there's any like specific examples that you would want to talk about. I think, it's going to be sort of like bargain hunting at the bottom. But what about like Ricky, some undrafted second round potential guys that the Bulls, they can get back into they could get back into the draft. They have already forfeited the 57th pick for the Lonzo Ball tampering fine. So if they were able to get back into the draft via trade in the second round, they could make a selection there. And I think that's like not unreasonable. A lot of these teams have multiple picks late in the first and early in the second. A lot of picks in the mid to late second are second or third picks for teams. Like, are there guys that you would, want to get back in for or hope that they fall out of the draft entirely?
Yeah, I think just as a general rule, if you're going to keep DeMar on the team, you just need shooting. So any shooter they can find, I think would be a pretty good situation for me. I don't have a ton of names in front of me, but I have been watching this draft class all year, so I think I can spitball a bit. One name that jumped out to me, I had a front row seat at the NCAA tournament in Des Moines, Iowa, to watch Penn State make some noise, win a game in the first round. I think they had a tight loss to Texas in round 2. Seth Lundy sort of has the projection you might be looking for. Built like a fire hydrant. He's like 6'5", squatty, low center of gravity, strong, really long arms. Senior.
I like the description, squatty.
Improved to a 40% three-point shooter this year. So he could be a guy I would look at for sure. I think just like good shooting prospect and not small. Those are the 2 keys. If you get a good shooting prospect and they're small, not really going to help you. I think you want a big, meaty, beefy shooter. That's what the Bulls should be looking for.
Big beefy boy.
Another guy I saw at the Combine who I thought was unbelievable, and I knew really nothing about him going into it, and I believe there's no relation here, but Tristan Vucevic, who's a 19-year-old who played for Real Madrid. I believe he measured 6'11" barefoot. This guy at the Combine was like not even making the net move on his three.
Yeah, he can stroke it.
He looked unbelievable.
Marco 2.0.
To get Marco out of here, bring this guy in.
Well, Marco could never shoot like that.
Yeah.
And I don't really know, how much overlap there is actually in their skill set. Marco just seems more like a bruiser in terms of his skill set. He's certainly not a sniper like Vucevic, if that is how you pronounce it. And I don't know if there's a better tall shooter in the class than this Tristan Vucevic.
There's a K in there somewhere. I feel like I don't remember.
And he was awesome. at the combine. Didn't know much about him, but he's very tall and he can really shoot it. If you want a guard who can shoot, Adam Flagler, who was around a long time at Baylor. I believe he's a very good three-point shooter, around 40%, 80% free throw shooter. I think that could be interesting. Another name, if you're looking for a big man who could maybe stretch the floor a little bit, how about NCAA tournament hero Adama Sanogo, who left UConn? He really developed into a three-point shooter this year. I believe he had attempted like 1 or 2 threes in his entire career before this past season, and then he was splashing threes at a pretty decent volume throughout the year. He's also a really good rebounder. He's long, 7'3" wingspan guy. He's not super mobile, but he's got a good frame, like 250, 60-pound frame, and he is a guy who has developed his outside jumper while also still having like the traditional big man stuff. So I think he's pretty interesting. Really, like the only thing that I'm looking for is shooting out of any of these guys. If you want a deep sleeper, how about Marcus Bagley, the little brother of Marvin Bagley? He's had a very star-crossed career at Arizona State. He barely played, but when he did play, he's like a tall, lanky wing, unlike his brother, who's a front court player, who can supposedly shoot. I mean, his numbers weren't super good, but he's always had a good reputation as a shooter. So those are some of the guys I'd look for. Amoni Bates, another one. I assume he'll get drafted. Maybe he won't. But, his one skill is shooting as well. So I think what you want are guys with sturdy frames, which Bates does not have, but sturdy frames who can shoot. It's kind of what you're looking for. And anyone who fits that description, I think, would be a good undrafted free agent type for them to get. I have heard some good things about Justin Lewis in his rehab. I was really excited about him last year on the team. I also think that, while Dalen Terry got a red shirt last year, and it's impossible to say what his role on the team will be, he just has to play this year, I think. Because even if he's not any good, the only way you're going to be able to tell is if he plays. The Bulls have so few draft picks to their name that you can't just totally burn one on a guy who doesn't even get a chance when he was a top 20 pick. So to me, I'm moving off DJJ.
If you don't like Dalen, trade him. If they drafted him and they just think that he's not good, trade him. You just trade him.
But I think that they need some fresh blood in there for sure. And then if they're going to keep DeMar, Vooch, and Zach, they need shooters around them. If they do that, of course, they're not going to win a championship. But I think, maybe they could be interesting. I think they could be better than last year.
I have another draft question here. Do we think there's still any chance that they could get 23 from the Blazers? There's been some rumors out there about the protected pick. They could work something out there. And I feel like we haven't really heard anything since then. So I'm not really sure. But if they do, say they do get 23, other names possibly if the Bulls somehow got late first round, 23.
So I would just first say, to me, when the Blazers moved up from 5 to 3, the odds of the Bulls getting the 23rd pick back felt a lot smaller just because plummeted. I think, if they're going to move it and Scoot is available, the value of that pick just is enormous. But maybe they're going after 2 guys, or maybe, they're going after Embiid or somebody who would require multiple future firsts. I think that's where the Bulls have leverage, but I think that leverage went way down. And honestly, what does it say about your team if the most exciting thing you have to look forward to is if you can squeeze another team out of some pick protections down the line. 23, I don't know, Ricky probably has some stronger takes, but again, we're just talking about shooters. Dariq Whitehead would be awesome. I really like him. If Jordan Hawkins is there, it'd probably be hard to say no. I don't love him, but just that quality of shooting, the movement there, I think is really good. I don't know. Yeah, this draft is so crazy after 10, where any of the guys between 10 or 11 and 25, 26 could be drafted anywhere, it feels like. And so it's hard to kind of say, but again, just size and shooting. That's all I need.
Jet Howard and Bryce Sensabaugh are 2 other names I would say there. I think that there's a pretty good chance. I think definitely one of those guys is going to be available between Jet and Bryce at 23, maybe both of them. Also, the Bulls are not getting that 23rd.
I figured as much. I just wanted to throw it out there. We have so little draft things to talk about. We need something to come up with here.
Yeah, but I do like Will's question about the undrafted free agents because, you know, in this new CBA, as everyone's talking about, you're going to need rookie scale production. It also puts a little bit more pressure on the G League just to like develop some guys on these two-way deals, develop contributors out of the Miami G League. The Bulls had the G League MVP in Carlick Jones, right? Not a super tantalizing prospect. He's so small, but he's really small. Put up huge numbers. Maybe you do give him a look this year, but I would love to see them stack the G League team with like some real prospects because even their G League team, like it was kind of just guys. It sort of seemed like they didn't put a lot of thought into building the G League team. So like you need to get some like more appealing guys who have real NBA pathways, whether they shake out or not. Like essentially what you want to do is just get guys who fit the mold of an actual NBA player who have some skills that like if they hit, they could be pretty decent. And they don't really have that currently on the G League roster. To me, it's a lot of guys who have no chance to make the NBA. So I think that just becomes more and more important for everyone moving forward, especially for the Bulls who are sort of boxed in here without a lot of picks.
Ricky, where do you think guys like Ben Shepherd, Julian Strother, Marcus Sasser, some of like the older players coming out of college that are probably going to be like mid-second round, like do you think there's a way they get in that range?
I love Strother. Strother would be awesome. He's got real size. He's 6'6" with a 6'9" or 6'10" wingspan. Pretty strong build and an absolute sniper as a shooter. Of course, he hit the big shot for Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament in one of the later rounds there. So I think he would be awesome. He's like an ideal type of guy that you target in the mid-second. And yeah, I do think that is possible for the Bulls to acquire a pick, let's say in the mid-40s, because I mean, we saw at the trade deadline, everyone's trading 5 second-round picks at the same time. The Bulls need some more young talents on the roster. And it's hard to say, like, okay, we're going to draft a guy 47, and he's going to have an immediate role on the team. But as we've talked about, the Bulls definitely have some roster spots they should be turning over. They need more young talent. So I would love that if they could get in, try to get a guy like him. And I like the idea of trying to find a young point guard prospect. Now, obviously, if you're picking one that late, they're going to be flawed, but I think Sasser is a pretty good bet. Someone like Mike Miles from TCU is just a gamer. I could see him eventually developing like a Fred VanVleet type. Marquise Newell is interesting. He's so small, but, maybe that lack of size will let you get him as an undrafted free agent. I said Adam Flagler. I think he's pretty interesting. So, yeah, I like the idea of trying to get a young point guard prospect to develop because, besides for shooting, point guard play, I would say, is one of the biggest weaknesses on the team. And then just like wing depth. They have no wing depth. Their only wing is Patrick Williams. The only real forward on the team. So they need to beef up there a bit too. And hopefully Justin Lewis returning does help that. But how much are you really putting on Justin Lewis's shoulders as an undrafted guy coming off an ACL tear?
Yeah.
Still seems like more of a long-term.
Can't really expect much
for him.
Yeah, I like Justin. He's also just like a really nice, quiet, humble dude. So I'm rooting for him. But we were going a little long here, so we probably wrap it up. But anything you guys want to plug or mention before we get out of here?
Ricky, go ahead.
Not too much. I'd say I'm just doing draft.
You got some mock drafts.
Nation.com. So I had a mock draft up. I'm doing another mock draft Monday. I'm doing another mock draft the day of the draft. I'm also putting out my top 60 big board that I'm still sort of working my way through, but I got a pretty rough idea of where that's headed. I talked to Dave Lato today, who coached the Thompson Twins in Overtime Elite. Of course, former legendary DePaul coach Dave Lato. He was really cool to talk to. I got some good insight on the Twins from him. So I'm going to try to spend my weekend writing a feature on them. And I will have, of course, as I do every year, a look at next year's top 30 after the draft. I've been doing that for like 10 years at this point. It's been a real adventure. I've been right about some stuff. Luka Doncic is the preseason #1. I've been wrong about some stuff. Cam Reddish and Emmanuel Mudiay is the preseason #1.
Everyone gets stuff wrong.
And I think it just sort of like sets the table for the next draft class the year to come. So that will hopefully come out the day after this NBA draft as well at sbnation.com.
Nice. Yeah. Go check that out. For me, you can follow me on Twitter at Bulls_J. Go check out clutchpoints.com. Tons of NBA coverage and a bunch of stuff there. And we'll probably have a cash considerations pod next week, maybe before the draft. I mean, again, with the Bulls not having anything going on really right now, maybe there'll be some more rumors we talk about. Maybe they'll actually buy a pick. We'll see. But we'll have another pod coming out the next week or so, either maybe before the draft. We'll have something after the draft too at some point. So, yeah. And we will have this pod up on our feed at some point as well. So this is great. Thank you so much for having us. Always a pleasure, and never an issue going long. Whenever we have guests, we go super long. We always just love rambling about this stupid team that, even though they impress us.
And it's always like it's the same conversation too, just like a bunch of different ways of doing it. I don't think anything will happen until at the very earliest, like on draft night, certainly for the Bulls, who are kind of waiting on other teams to make some moves. But obviously we at CHGO will be back on Monday, and we'll be live every day of the week, just like we always are. Again, follow Ricky at SBN_Ricky on Twitter, at Bulls_J. I am at Will _Gottlieb, all the underscores here today. But thank you guys so much for coming on. It's great talking with you, and we will see you all next time.